Hello and welcome to today's edition of Your Questions Answered with Father Gruner. Those who have been following know that this is a program where you send us your questions and Father Gruner answers them. We discuss them and try to provide the answer. If you do have any questions, please email them to us at questions@thefatimacenter.com. You can see it on the screen there, hopefully. Questions@thefatimacenter.com. And being the Fatima Center, of course, we're going to get a good bit of questions about Fatima itself. And here is one that we often hear this one. Our Lady of Fatima said, in Portugal, the dogma of faith will always be preserved. But where is the dogma of faith preserved in Portugal, if only 11% of those who call themselves Catholic assist at Mass on Sundays and holy days, according to recent polls? So how do we look at this?
Well, as you yourself know, John, first of all, it's a partial quote of the secret. As we know, the Vatican has released a text which describes a vision, which Lucy writes right down as part of the secret. But we also know that the Vatican has not released the words of Our Lady. And of course, the words of Our Lady would describe or explain that vision much better than we have.
Because these are the words of Our Lady
and
here.
These are the first words, but as Lucy herself put down, etc., right after that, in Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved, etc. So what comes after it will always be preserved? Is it saying if Portugal...
Yeah, is this a conditional prophecy?
Yeah, so we don't know, because the Vatican, wrongly so, has held this information from us. It's a prophecy meant for the whole church. It's addressed to all of us. We should have it, but we don't have it. So to answer the person's question, if it's not conditional, then God will fulfill his if it's not a conditional prophecy, then he will fulfill it and somehow. And yes, I've answered this before. For example, sometimes people say, well, it's not being preserved. Look at what Bishop so-and-so or Cardinal of Lisbon does or whatever. I say, well, it's not a prophecy that promises that the clergy of Portugal will keep the faith. It's a prophecy that Portugal will keep the faith if, in fact, it's not conditional. We don't know that from the words that come forward because we don't have those words. But I would say this, what Portugal has been blessed by having Our Lady appear there, and the Portuguese have shown their gratitude for that by, one-sixth of the nation every year, at least up to a few years ago, 1/6 of the Portuguese nation, so about 10 million people, 1/6 of that is about 1.6 million people, every year in Portugal go, whether by car or walking or however they get there, to Portugal to commemorate, for devotional reasons, to thank Our Lady for coming and pledge their... So that's a lot more than we have. For example, in the United States, you have the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington. I don't think 1/6 of even the American Catholics, which would be over 10 million or 12 million Catholics, don't go there. But 1/6 of the Portuguese nation does. Now, Portugal, of course, is a smaller country, and it's easier to get there, but all the same, it just shows the devotion of the Portuguese. And as such, one of the saints say in general that if you're devoted to Our Lady, she'll keep your faith. I mean, even Cardinal Newman points out that Our Lady is the Tower of David, and that... and he says, what is a tower? A tower is a type of defense, and David is the archetype of Christ. And so that Mary is the tower of David. She's a defender of Christ. And as Cardinal Newman points out, that in those countries that have maintained devotion to Our Lady, they maintain belief in the divinity of Christ. And those Protestant countries, he's writing in the 19th century, who didn't preserve devotion to Our Lady, have lost their by and large, their faith in divinity.
Yeah, it's interesting because a typical Protestant objection to devotion to Our Lady is that it detracts from Christ. But Cardinal Newman's historical examples showed the exact opposite, that when there is strong devotion to Our Lady, then there is a stronger devotion to our Lord, to whom Our Lady leads us.
Yes, of course, exactly. But that's why I think that the prophecy, in some way, is as long as Portugal maintains its devotion to Our Lady, and this is not saying that since the 1/6 do this, that the other 5/6 of the country are going to be perfectly fine. Obviously, the further away anyone is, God is not going to say, well, Portuguese are in favor because 1/6, but these other people, these 4 Americans, only 1/20th or something go show their devotion to Our Lady, so therefore we're going to condemn them too. No, it's obviously the promise is for those who practice this devotion, but if we have 1/6 of the nation doing this, it's better than a lot of other countries, that's for sure. It's not, in this time of apostasy, it's pretty good. However, it's not good enough for people to save their souls if they're not part of that sixth, whatever should I say.
Well, a big part of Fatima is, we'll wrap this up, but a big part of Fatima is, of course, is that Our Lady helps us to preserve the faith.
Yes.
By listening to her message, by praying the prayers that she had to, for living the Fatima message, is a means for us to preserve the faith.
Absolutely. If you pray the rosary every day, Our Lady says you'll overcome heresy. You will not fall. If you fall into heresy, she will pull you out of heresy. You pray the rosary every day. So that's why she insisted on the rosary every day. And we don't have to be Portuguese in order to inherit this promise.
I don't have any Portuguese blood in me, so
neither do I.
That's comforting. Okay, well, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.